Good morning. It is Monday and it is Columbus Day. So I hope you have fun plans today. I know this is a government holiday, so there'll be no post office, no banking. But the government in Washington, D.C. will be busy because the hearings begin for Amy Coney Barrett for Supreme Court Justice. Now that's what's on our calendar today on October 12th. But on the Hebrew calendar, did you know that this is a special day? And we find it in Nehemiah chapter 9, and I'm going to start with verse 1. Now on the 24th day of the month, that's this month, that's the 24th day of Tishri, the people of Israel were assembled with fasting and in sackcloth, with earth on their heads. And the Israelites separated themselves from all foreigners and stood and confessed their sins and iniquities of their fathers. And they stood up in a place and read the book of the law of the Lord their God for a quarter of a day. Now, they have 12 hours of the night and 12 hours of the day. So a quarter of a day would be 3 hours. So they stood in their place and read the book of the law of the Lord their God for 3 hours. And another quarter of the day, another 3 hours, they made confession and worshiped the Lord their God. You know, we had Revival for Survival of America, of the USA in Houston this weekend. And we had, our tickets were out in the field. And we were out in the field from 9:30 in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was about 100 degrees on that field, and we could not take it anymore. You know, our bodies aren't used to that. And I don't know what temperature it was in Israel on Tishri 24 of this year. I think it was like 300 and some BC. They had just come back from Babylon. And Ezra had rebuilt the temple, and Nehemiah came back and rebuilt the walls and the gates. And so the walls and the gates are all finished. But what they had to do is they had to get the people back in order. Because what good is it going to do if you're going to fix the walls and the gates and all that, and the people's hearts aren't in order? So for 6 hours of the day, they read the Word of God, what God had to say, God's way of doing and being right. And then for another 3 hours, they just confessed their sins for 3 hours and worshiped the Lord their God. Now, let me read to you what the Levites said. And the Levites said almost a whole chapter after this, but let me just start. The Levites, and then he started listing them. Stand up and bless the Lord your God from everlasting to everlasting. Blessed be your glorious name, which is exalted above all blessing and praise. You are the Lord, you alone. You made heaven, the heavens of heaven with all our hosts, the earth and all that is in it, the seas and all that is in them. You preserve all of them, and the hosts of heavens worship you. You are the Lord your God. You chose Abram and brought him out of Ur of the Chaldeans and gave him the name Abraham. You found his heart faithful before you and made with him the covenant to give the offspring of the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, Amorite, the Perizzite, the Jebusite, the Girgashite. And you kept your promise because you were righteous. And then he said, and you heard the father's cries in Egypt and at the Red Sea. You did signs and wonders against Pharaoh. I'm just going to paraphrase all this. You divided the seas. You became a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. You came down from Mount Sinai and spoke to them from heaven and gave them right rules and right laws, right statutes and commandments. And then in verse 17, he says, and they refused to listen. They refused to listen. And then we come to verse 20. You gave them manna for their mouth. You gave them water for their thirst. 40 years you sustained them in the wilderness, and they lacked nothing. Now, these people had been standing out there 6 hours before they started just going through God's faithfulness. God was faithful the whole time, but they were not faithful. They were not faithful. They did not follow God. And then, therefore, you gave them into the hand of the enemy. So today is the day that Nehemiah chapter 9, Nehemiah chapter 10. You might want to go back and read it. I was reading it from the ESV, English Standard Version. And you might want to go back and read it for yourself. This is that day in history. God bless you. Bye-bye.